So this morning, what I'd like to share with you, something is working in my heart about, is my teenagers, my children, and then how He has given me a burden to deal with others. I'm not necessarily deal with, but talk to, I guess, try and encourage. Because I know every teenager here, if you're awake, has plans. And, if you think now, younger teenager, but especially older teenager, you have a plan, a thought, this is what I want to do. You have goals, dreams that you want to accomplish in life. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about this morning quickly. As I tell my children ad nauseum, when I go to work, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. I can go into a house that's full of gas, and I can figure out where the gas leak is. I can go where there's carbon monoxide, and I can deal with dangerous things to a certain extent, and I know exactly what I'm doing because I do it every single day, and I've done it for years. I'm not a professional parent. This is the first 18-year-old I've ever had, the first 15-year-old son I've ever had, and so I make mistakes. Obviously, ask my children, they'll tell you that I make a lot of mistakes. I deal too harshly. I know that's a shock. Sometimes, but in my heart and in my mind, I know what I'm trying to get across to my children. I know the mistakes that I've made, and they are vast. The things that I didn't do right. When I was 16, I'd had enough of school, so I dropped out of high school. I started my career at McDonald's. My goal in life, and I'm not joking, at 16, my goal in life was to be a regional manager of McDonald's. Because my regional manager, her husband worked for GM, and she drove a Corvette. So why wouldn't I want to do that? Okay. Well, I got a job at a bakery after that. I got a pay raise. I was making $4 an hour at the bakery. So my goal in life at 17 was to own that bakery when that man retired. That was my new goal in life. Well, at 17, I decided to move away from home, about a town 3 hours away. I bought a car. Lasted about 3 months. My car broke down. I had to move back home. Well, I was 18. That was right when the Gulf War was happening. And I decided my goal in life was to be a fighter pilot. And I'm on my third goal already. So I tried to join the Air Force, and they said, you're going to have to wait. Well, during that time, I decided I was going to go to college at Iowa State, and my goal was to be a neurosurgeon. All the plans that I had, as you know, none of them succeeded. But during that time, I finally gave up, and I said, God, this isn't working. And I surrendered. I came here, And a while back, I had the opportunity to sit in the high school chapel. I heard a very, very good sermon. And after that sermon, and I'm going to do my best to keep my composure here, but after that sermon, someone got up and they talked about their life story, a little bit of it. They were getting ready to decide what they wanted to do, and they were getting advice from a sibling, from a teacher, from a coach, all good advice about where to go to Bible college. And they weren't sure. Well, they talked to their dad, they talked to their pastor, and both of those individuals suggested that they come here. And that individual listened to that advice. And somewhere else, another individual was talking to their dad and said, yeah, I want to go to Fairhaven, but I want to go for 2 years to do secretarial. And from what I understand, their dad said, hey, that's great, by all means, but you're going for 4 years. So you can do your secretarial, but then figure out what you're going to do for the last 2 years. Well, those two people came to college. They met. They got married. And not long ago, they watched their child get married to a godly individual that they met here. And you think maybe they're sitting there as that wedding was happening thinking, man, I wish I would have listened to my sister. I wish I would have went over here. That's dumb. They weren't thinking that. Because of that decision, all that happened, people in our church, are here because of that decision. And it's not like they didn't have a will of their own. They just listened to their dad and their pastor, flawed individuals. But what happened because of that? I heard another story about when we were sitting here, and I know what you're thinking, oh, they're all stories. And you're right, they are stories. But we were having our testimony service during the homecoming, and someone was telling a story that there was an individual in front of them that basically had a tissue in their hand the whole time. This individual grew up here, and they decided they were going to go their way. And they did, and it didn't work out. Now, we all have decisions. I understand that. Sorry, this is the first time I've ever had notes here, and I'm trying to figure that out. But, the biggest thing, I guess, is you hear it, surrender, God's will. Does God call you? Oh, he didn't call me. Well, how do you know he didn't call you? And I understand all that. And that's where it's in your mind as a teenager. In my children's mind, this is what I want to do. And I can say, well, God didn't call me. But, just think in your own mind. Have you volunteered? God told Isaiah, I'm looking for a man. And Isaiah said, here am I. Do you want to volunteer? Does God have to call you to do something else? No, you can't be a missionary. And like I said, it's in your mind, it's in your heart. It was in my mind and heart. Do you want to listen to the advice of your father or your mother or your pastor? Or is it the case of, I'm going to do what I want to do? And you can. You absolutely can. We volunteer for the things that we want to volunteer for. I think about my children, and I'm almost done. My daughter plays piano, and she's good at it, and I could say, do the best you can, and I can push her to be the best she can be. In theory, she could be a concert pianist, but there's a point where I've got to say as a dad, is it for your ego, is it for you, or is this furthering God, My son, he likes to play goalie for the team, and I help him, I push him, but there's a point where I could say, oh, I wanted to be on the men's national team, or this is for God's service. Do the best you can for your team. You're not going to be a professional soccer player. So we volunteer for the things that we want. And all I'm asking to think about is, am I willing? It's not that I have to do everything my mom and dad say or my pastor, but am I willing to go to them with an open heart and say, Pastor, Dad, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And I talk to teens, and I know some of them, they look at me like, okay, just finish your story so I can go do my thing. I get it. I understand. But like I said, God's given me a burden that I didn't have before I had teens. To say, hey, just think about it. Just pray about it. That's all we ask, is just be open and willing to listen to your parents, listen to your pastor, and let God lead you.